Hello and welcome back to our weekly market recap. I'm with Rich.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm Knight. Let's get to it. So this past week we saw the market up 1.2%, which brings us down year to date 0.3%, down from the highs in February 4.8%, and up from the lows in March 44.1%. So this is the third straight week that we've seen with the market rallying. And this week, kind of some of the main market movers were the earnings season. We finally kicked off the Q2 earnings, and then also some more news around the coronavirus. So, Rich, do you want to briefly touch on the coronavirus and the updates that we've seen?
Yes, we've had a couple of things go on that I think are very interesting. We had very good news from Moderna that their vaccine was useful for and very successful for their first round testing on humans. People developed the right kind of antibodies to fight off the disease. That helped to propel a stock market rally on the day that that news got announced. In addition, we now know that the Russians are trying to hack in and find out what good things we have, the UK has, and Canada on their vaccine work.
Yeah, I think with all this positive news, it feels like we get more positive news every week around vaccines. In some ways, I wonder if we're still going too fast, if the expectations for the vaccine, even though we are seeing human trials, still the ability to actually mass produce them is far off, and the ability to even really understand if it is having the effect that we want. It's still very early. So my expectation, going forward is we're still looking probably to the end of this year, maybe even beginning of next year before we have a vaccine readily available.
Well, part of it, just think about the numbers. To have a vaccine available for the United States, we would need something on the order of 300 million vials. And so we're looking at a production even ramping up to 1 million or 1.5 million. That takes almost an entire year just for that.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of answers it then. Even if we do get to a place where we have a working vaccine, it will still take a lot of production to eventually get mass distributed. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, the next big thing was, again, the earnings season. And, Q2 earnings was obviously coming in not great, the big shutdown. And so everyone was expecting for earnings across the board to kind of fall off. And in some ways, we're in this weird place of no matter how poor the earnings are, we're kind of giving everyone an excuse. But at the same time, we have, the JP Morgans of the world, the Goldman Sachs's that actually beat earnings and are heavily rewarded versus, the Wells Fargo and, the Bank of America that come in lower. Obviously, the difference between the retail banking, the, regular commercial banking, loans and, checking accounts, those ones are struggling. And then you have the investment banks like the Goldman Sachs and then the arm of JP Morgan that's still heavily invested in the market and mergers and acquisitions and in kind of the corporate banking side. And that has been thriving. So we're really seeing this kind of piece of how everything's playing out in the coronavirus world. Some, even in the same industry, some companies are rising to the top and others are not.
Well, I think it's going to be a great harbinger of what to expect during the coronavirus economy, that companies that are invested in the stock market in some regard will do better than companies that are invested in Main Street activities because they are more prone to being shut down. Federal Reserve, in their actions, have caused stock market to rise hugely in comparison to how the general economy has done. And we're seeing that. I think it's great for us to take this in and to realize this is our window into what it's like operating under these current conditions.
Yeah, I think uh, like you said, makes a lot of sense on the market piece, but also the other companies. One of the big shocks actually this week was Netflix coming out and saying, they've obviously had a boost during this coronavirus, economy, but their guidance going forward was actually the opposite of now that we're expecting in the future for people to be moving out, subscribers to actually stop maintaining their subscriptions, and it actually had the stock fall, I think, around 7% today after earnings. So we're seeing both sides of it. We're seeing some insight into what the coronavirus world economy looks like, and then we're also now seeing people already seeing the shift out and how that's affecting the markets right now.
Absolutely, and it's a good indication once again of what to expect and what we're expecting your portfolios to do. Those that are invested heavily in market performance will do well, and we're trying to minimize exposure to leisure and movie theaters and other items that would be exposed greatly to coronavirus shutdowns.
Yeah, and I think it's an important time between obviously diversifying our portfolios, but also diversifying in a smart way where you're not just diversifying again across the board and saying, yeah, let's throw our money into exactly the leisure, the hotels, air travel, and everything. There's obviously a point in time, but I think this is really the moment where we need to be focused on diversifying in a smart way. Well, anyways, appreciate you guys tuning in this week as we always do. Your money's meant to support you. We're meant to support you. Please reach out. We've seen some volatile times in this past few weeks rising up, and going forward, it might continue to be volatile, but we'll be here every week filling you in on the news.